Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between training and on-field performance.
I'm Brett Hart, owner of Hitman Performance.
And I'm Dan Labadia, the owner of Jack Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show. Welcome everyone back to this episode of The Gap. Today we have a very special guest, Brady from DAC Performance and Health. He is a Instagram phenomenon. I'm sure you've seen some of his posts doing crazy stuff, and our goal is to just understand the why, pretty much how he ended up to where he's at now, and essentially what it all means for him. So, DAC, what's up?
What's up, guys? I appreciate you having me. I appreciate what you guys do. And yeah, let's roll.
Dude, first question, where did DAC come from?
Okay, so DAC really came out of a necessity for me of do you mean the acronym itself, or you mean DAC as like a business and as a company, as an idea?
Let's go for both. Let's see, what does it stand for, and then how it evolved.
The acronym is Decide, Act, Conquer, which I came up with that in 2017. And to me, that just made sense, because with anything that I do, decision, there's action, and then there's the conquering at the end of it. So it was that was the acronym that I came up with. And then where that really came from was like I said, is basically out of a necessity. So when I got out of college, or even in my last year of college, I was training myself, and I was having some other guys that were asking me for training. And so it wasn't really like I set out to start a business, but it's more like it just kind of came naturally because of what I was doing and how I was communicating and how I had improved. And so from that, I was like, well, I guess I need a name for it. And then I came up with that. And it's just, it's progressed from there. So I don't know if we can get into more specifics, but it started in 2017, has evolved a lot since then.
How old are you now?
I am 29. Yeah.
30s make or break. So how are we feeling about 30?
What do you mean 30s make or break?
That's our running joke. It's like, if you don't, I feel like guys, 30 is like, you either have something figured out or it's just mediocrity. Yeah, by 30, it's just you're either on the right path or you're going to figure stuff out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I'm feeling fine about 30. I really haven't given it much thought. For me, it was really, that point for me was like 25. When I was 25, I made some major decisions and major changes, and actually started like going into what it was that I wanted to do full on. Before that, I would consider, like, really after college, between maybe 22 or 23 to 25, I didn't know exactly what it was that I wanted to do or how I wanted to do it. I was more just like kind of plodding along, just doing things that were good enough. And by 25, I was like, all right, bro, what am I doing? I have to change some stuff and figure this out.
Is that what led to your physical transformation? Because I know that you've posted a lot about how when you got out of college, you weren't training as hard, you kind of lost your way, and now you seem to be in the best shape of your life.
Yeah, the physical transformation was in 2020, end of 22 to the start of 23, and then up through now. So when I really started making changes, I would consider to be like end of 2021, early 2022. So it was kind of like I had to make the decision. This goes back to, I guess, like the DAC acronym, right? I had to make the decision of, I don't like the way that things are going, and so I have to make some changes. And then that kind of like led to me like researching, doing different things. And then the end of 2022, that's when I know you guys want to talk about this, but that's when I had my call with Jay Schroeder. And then that is really what kickstarted into 2023, the actual physical transformation in and of itself, just because of like data and information that I had from him that kind of built on a bunch of little pieces that I had tried to put together before. But he helped me to connect all those different pieces so that I could make it actually show up as like a physical reality, I guess.
Before we talk about the call with Jay, which I think will take the whole time, to be honest, but I want to talk a little bit about just a little bit of your origin story back in 2017. Like, how did you learn that training was it for you, or how'd you get into it? How'd you discover your own special training style? Because I'm assuming everyone starts with like squat, bench, deadlift, and then how do you progress from that? And what was some of your key inspirations? And then besides Jay, but go from that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question, because it's been like 15 years now, 14 or 15 years now. So, I first started training in like 8th grade consistently. I think it was 5 times a week. I started with Eric Cressy's stuff, because I was in baseball.
I used to work there. Interned.
In one of your videos, I thought I saw his facility.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started with that. And then let's see. I tried a bunch of different stuff. Like in high school, I remember there was a time where I did I don't know if you guys are familiar with John Bros. Have you ever heard of John Bros?
No. Oh, is that Bulgarian?
Yeah, he does Bulgarian
Okay.
style stuff in the US. So he's like squat max every day, bench max every day, like that type of thing, right? And so I did, I think it was like a 2 month or 60-day experiment with that in high school, or just like work up to a heavy squat, heavy bench, heavy deadlift, heavy row or something like that every single day. I mean, I got a lot stronger, was slow, was very slow. Cause I remember when I was a junior in high school, I ran like a 7.6, which is terrible for a 60.
Oh, I thought you were talking about 40 at first.
Feel bad. But when I was in like eighth grade, I ran a 7.04, which I don't know if that's good for an eighth grader, but like it's better than 7.6. And so I literally made myself slower, right, over that time period. But I was just trying a bunch of different things out because what I wanted for myself was I didn't have as much clarity as I do now on what I wanted for myself, but I was like, I want to give myself a chance to play professional baseball was my thought at that time. And so I'm going to try to do that. And so I'll just go through like online forums, go through social media was starting, maybe not in high school, but like a little bit later starting, Twitter specifically for baseball to start. And so it was just me trying to like get data, and then apply it to myself, work with it, experiment with it, all the while not actually really working with anybody. I was very stubborn and like hitting my head against the wall, trying it all myself. And I think that it made me much worse as an athlete. It's probably helped me now as a coach, but coming up, like it made me much worse as an athlete. And so that then led into, I mean, really the biggest switch after that would be the first year after college. So this would have been in 2018. Me and a buddy, Jared Burton, he's trained efficiently on Instagram. Me and him took a 30-day trip like around the country. We went to 13 different training facilities. I'll back up a little bit. Before that, I was working landscaping on a tree farm for 3 months. Absolutely hated it, despised it. I was like, I need to get out of this, right? But I listened to like a podcast every single day, and eventually I was just like, why don't I go visit and talk to these people that I'm listening to the podcast with, right? So saved up enough money. We went in my car. We took a 30-day trip, 13 different facilities. The first place we went was Caldizas in Minnesota. So I think we were there for 2 days. Stayed at an interesting Airbnb. But we were there for 2 days, and that one visit would have flipped everything for us, because like he just presented a different way of viewing training in the sense of there's a lot more to take into consideration than just sets, reps, and the exercise. So that was huge. And then we went to a lot of the different other facilities. So like we talked to Louis. I mean, he's passed away now, but we talked to Louis at Westside. Driveline we went to, I'd been out there 2 or 3 times before. There's a bunch of different places that we went, but something that I got from a lot of those places was most of them weren't doing anything that was that crazy. They just like had a place and they were training people and people knew about them. Like Cal was really the only one where I was like, okay, this is different. Louis obviously had some stuff, but so it was a good combination of me realizing, okay, if I want to have a business, I want to do this, I want to like help people get better. One, people need to know that I exist. And this would come more into fruition like a little bit later, but I was like, these people are doing things that aren't that crazy. It's just that people know about them, right? Like literally, you know their name. But then number two, Cal also had things that he was doing significantly different, right? And so it was like that combination of things where I was like, okay, I want to have something that we're doing that's actually significantly different, that works much better than what traditionally is used. And then I also need people to know that it exists. Like that combination of things. And so that was in 2018. That really kickstarted. And I would say the next flip after that would be then in the end of 2020. And so me and Jared and a couple other people for 6 months, we were at an in-person training facility. I think the most that we had was like 90 baseball athletes that we were working with in this facility. That lasted for 6 months. That ended. And then I had to kind of consider, okay, like what is it that I actually want to do? And that's when I started the version of it that I have now, which is DAC Performance and Health, because before it was DAC Baseball. Now it's DAC Performance and Health. And that's when I really started to dive into get much closer to the way that we train now, which is to be like, I mean, Tommy John was an inspiration there. Jay Schroeder, which I've already mentioned. I mean, those would probably be the two biggest in terms of the way that I train right now. I already stacked onto like everything that I had before that.
So Brady, I know that we have a common connection, and that was my coach, Kevin Foster from Javelin Anatomy. He's the one that introduced me to you probably around that 2019, 2020 time is when I started following your stuff. And it's been cool to see how much you've grown since then. And even going back to me, like I barely knew anything back then. And so what role did Kevin Foster play like in your development, or was it kind of just like a friendship where you guys bounced ideas off each other? Because he was a mentor for me. So I just want to hear your side of that.
Yeah, so with Kevin, it was basically just like bouncing ideas off of each other. And then I also mentioned Grant Fowler. He's another guy early on that I had a lot of communication with. And so those guys were also definitely like instrumental, where I would say, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, this is just my interpretation of it, right? It was like we were at a similar place and we were all like working on kind of similar ideas, similar concepts in our own different ways. And just like this little kind of group where we could bounce things off of each other and learn and get better, right? And so yeah, like, I mean, Fowler was the first one that I ever saw. So the impulses specifically, he did them on the hyper. There was like one or two exercises that he did them on the reverse hyper with. So that's the first time that I ever saw anything that resembled an impulse. And so that was my inspiration for that. We use them a lot, like later on, then I kind of developed my own, how I use them. But yeah, it was just like, there's a group and a crew that we could communicate with, we could, bounce ideas off of and test things out. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super vital to have. And I mean, I would say I have something similar with my relationship with Brett now, is like we're both similar age and just kind of going through this, navigating this strength and conditioning.
30, sorry. You guys close to 30?
No, Brett's turning 26 in a month and I'm 26 right now.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when you said 25 was like your decision point, because that's when I quit my job and started full time.
That's also when I quit my job and started this full time. So yeah, it was like that 22 to 25 is like you're getting your feet wet and you're trying to figure out. And like for me, I was working as a nutrition coach at this place and then working as a strength coach at this place and then having a side gig as a javelin coach at this school. And then I'm like, well, can I just combine this and do it on my own?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was pretty cool hearing your story, just the stubborn, like slamming your head into the wall, like trying everything yourself. Because that still is me to some degree. And then I think I'm finally starting to solidify, and it's your like decision, like your ability to make a decision and stick with it and like believe in it. I think I'm slowly turning the corner. I think it's that 25 age you're saying. It's just something about high achieving individuals. We're at 25.
It's that frontal lobe development.
I don't know what it is, but I mean, I think I'm. What I will say is I feel like I do it a little bit less now. Like now, if there's somebody that I want to learn from, I will immediately go do it, right? And I think I've told this story once or twice before, but this was before, it was around the time that I turned 25 or whatever, right? But there was a person that I wanted to learn from, and it was going to be, at that time, it was going to be $6K basically to be able to have a call or have a couple calls with this person. And I was like, dog, I don't know, man, But I found it was just like, it is going to cost me more to not do that, because I'm going to wonder and I'm never going to know if I did that or not. It's going to cost me more to not do that than to do it. And I was just like, all right, screw it. I'm going to do it. Right. And I saw how much I was able to grow at that, even before I got on any type of call. I was just like, because I was willing to make the decision to actually go into and learn something that I wanted to learn from a person that I wanted to learn from. I just got like this rush of energy because I wasn't holding back what I wanted to do anymore. And that action has repeated for me, just like on bigger scales, where I've learned now, as soon as I see somebody or something that I want to learn about, that I want to know about, I will go and do that thing like right now. And I don't have to bang my head against the wall being like, oh, I'm going to try to figure it out on my own. I'm going to try to figure it out on my own. I've done that enough. I know that it doesn't work. And if I could have done that when I was 16 or 18, it'd probably be a different story.
Yeah. You're paying down the ignorance debt.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what one of my mentors. Now, one of the guys that I follow online. Have you ever heard of Alex Hormozy before?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of
14 minutes, by the way, just for anyone keeping track.
14 minutes?
Yeah, we always timestamp when he mentions Alex Hormozy, so it's 14 minutes is right there.
But he's one of.
Wait, is that longer or shorter than normal?
It's on average. It's around 15 to 20 minutes, I'd say.
But I liked all his books, and that's what allowed me to, kind of take that jump to quit my job and do this full time. Is just his books and his podcast really helped me a lot. And he talks about that a lot. It's like it costs you more not knowing the information than it does to go out and find that information. And that was a big part of my turning point as well, was traveling across the country and meeting the people that I needed to meet with. I've met with probably a dozen Olympians now the last 2 years. And that's from, flying out to Oregon and at the Olympic trials and meeting with people and picking their brain while I'm out there. It's from going to their camps down in Louisiana and Florida and whatnot. And so, I've been around the country as well. And I think that there's just something empowering about that journey of going out there and confronting it and finding the answers and seeing them face to face. Because then when you go home and you get back to work, you attack it with that newfound energy and that newfound information that you just got, and you're able to have a more precise plan going forward.
100%. It's the reality that this person actually has data and information that you don't have.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's not because it's not that, at least for me. I mean, yes, I'm trying to sell somebody something, but it's literally because like I want you to do it because it actually is going to help you. Like this is data that you don't have. If you're going to go do like impulses and just hit one move for like 300 reps and say that I tried it, like no, that is not at all what the programming is. Like,
yeah,
there's data.
And it's also too like, if you're a coach and you're asking younger athletes to invest in you, but then you're not willing to go invest in yourself and learn more and self-develop just because you're not an athlete anymore, then you're not walking the walk. You need to have those times where you go out and invest in yourself and level up and put yourself in positions where you're the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that for sure.
Something you're saying on impulses, and this was literally an Instagram post an hour ago that I saw. It was the guy, I don't know if you know who Joe Padula is, the strength coach at Oklahoma.
Someone tagged me in it, yeah.
So he started doing he was doing impulses, the hamstring impulses on the reverse hyper, and he was like he's very detailed in his description and how he goes about explaining things. And then someone stitched it, some random new account, saying it was dumb. It was an ACL tear waiting to happen, and just stick with squatting. Like if we have a team of guys that squat 600 pounds, it's just stuff like that, like preaching the basics. What do you say to those coaches that only talk about, like we call it being inside the box, like what the NSCA handbook teaches or what strength and conditioning essentials course teaches is just being inside the box? What do you say to those guys that aren't willing to go outside of that and to learn something new?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just start with asking the question of what are you asking your guys to do? What are you asking your athletes to do, right? If they're athlete, let's say they're working with a football player, or I guess we can talk about throwing here because javelin, I work with a lot of baseball players, right? Let's say we're talking about a baseball player and a strength coach is like, why did you do an impulse? Why did you put them in layback? I'm like, okay, what are you going to ask your players to do? Like, tell me or show me what you're going to ask them to do. So let's say they go through a video of somebody throwing. I'm like, you can stop it at layback and be like, you see that? Like, and then ask them like, okay, so how do you view training? Like, what is preparation to you? What is training, right? And if they don't understand that training is, at least the way that I view it, training is to prepare you for what it is that you want to do. So if I take and I point at this video with this picture of like this dude's in layback, I'm like, this is what we're preparing him to do. You're telling us not to do that in the weight room because it's going to hurt him. How is he not going to get hurt there if we don't prepare him for it here? So it's not like trying to shove it down their throat necessarily. It's like trying to actually, because it is actually correct, right? And so I think it's just getting to the point where that individual is able to see it, right? And so it's asking like, yeah, what are you going to ask your guy to do? And what are you doing to actually prepare them for that?
I know Jay was big on training should exceed the expectation of sport. Is that something that you still buy into? Like training should be harder than what you're going to find in sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think by definition that has to be correct. Otherwise, you're not training; you're just working out.
So you're no minimal effective dose?
No, because my problem with minimal effective dose is like, all right, we do minimum effective dose, right? And then we're in the middle of a minor league season, and my guy's like, hey, I just got called up to AAA, and the next day I'm back down to AA, and then I got to travel to low A, and by the way, I got 3 hours of sleep because the flight got delayed, and the food sucks. Great. How's the minimum effective dose doing now? Like minimum effective dose is not preparing him for that. Your season is not minimum effective dose. Your season is like, this is most individual seasons are the absolute worst thing that could get thrown at you, right? Like your coach and your pen is going to have you get up 3 times to get hot one day. In baseball, that just means like they get up and throw 100%, but then they don't go in game.
Yep.
He's going to ask you to do that 3 times on Saturday. Then he's going to be like, oh, do it again on Sunday and then go in game. And then you're like, oh, my arm hits on Monday. He's like, why? You only threw once this weekend. Like, no, bro, like 5 times. I got hot 5 times, right? But the reality is that stuff happens. And so that is the actuality of what we're preparing for, at least the way that I view it. That is the actuality of what we're preparing for. We're not preparing for him to go on once in the weekend, even though that's what his stats are going to show us what happened. That's not what happened. You got hot 5 times, right? And you can, or that individual can be like, well, this is the reason that I'm hurt, and it's fine because it's not my fault. It's my coach's fault. It's like, okay, great. But what is your goal again? And he's like, oh, my goal is to get drafted or play pro ball or whatever it is. Good. So how is this excuse working as it relates to that? Because whether it's right or not, that is still what happens, and is your responsibility if you want to be able to prepare for that. So I guess if we want to say that minimum effective dose would be preparing them for that, then sure, let's do minimum effective dose.
Watch the sport, see what happens. I feel a lot of the sport coaches will look at weight room exercises. There's always that gap in between the two. And Dan has a pretty cool situation where he's like that.
I was like, okay,
yeah. But like that's the gap. But Dan has a cool, unique situation where he's the throwing coach and the strength and conditioning coach. So like he's able to see on the field, like, all right, what positions are they hitting? What do they need to do? And in the weight room, not so much mimic it, but make sure the stress is almost the same, or if not higher, so they can go. And we were talking with Mike Stein, who's another thrower, about limiting inhibition of the approach with the throw. And he's saying that's what his training is allowing him to do. And this is where you can get into like the neurological side of this. And you mentioned Dr. Jared Burton, which I was doing his 5-minute isos because his disciple Jared Slater made me go through them, and those suck ass. But they essentially just training the brain, the central nervous system, to eliminate inhibition and for your body to do what it's supposed to do without having that safeguard on. So talk about how your training does that better than just traditional squat, bench, deadlift.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a different perspective. I don't necessarily think I do similar things. I don't look at it as the brain controlling everything. I think the brain is, again, I don't know, this might get a little weird for some people, I don't know, but I think the brain is just like a piece of physical tissue that like is transferring it, like it's sending signals, it's doing that. But I don't think if you take out like one brain cell, I'm still me, right? Like I'm not, like my brain is not the center of it. My brain is just transferring like whatever it is that is me, if that makes any sense to anybody.
It kind of does. So what would you say the center is if it's not the brain?
Yeah, so it, like me.
Your spirit?
Yeah, exactly. Like I could cut off my arm, I'm still me, right? There's literally the part of my physical tissue is gone, I'm still me. I'm still who I am, right? How it shows up through like my body might be a little different. Anyway, so point being with that, as it relates to the brain, is I'm not looking at it as like, I'm not trying to change a bunch of like chemicals, or I don't think I need something to change chemicals. I don't think I need something to do that. I'm like, the chemicals are the way that they are. My brain is the way that it is because of the way that I am. So if I want to change my brain, I need to change the way that I am, right? And so as it relates to exercise and how we use that to, I guess, like reduce inhibition is, it's not, I'm looking at as making the decision from up top for how the brain can be while I'm in the exercise versus like following what the brain does or says, if that makes sense. So like, let's say I'm in a lunge or I'm in a deep push-up. I'll use deep push-up because that's what I'm best at. Let's say that I'm in a deep push-up, right? And there are going to be sensations that I'm feeling when I'm in that deep push-up, or for most people, there are going to be sensations that you're feeling in that deep push-up. That's like, we're sending a signal down that we want to be in this position. We're getting feedback back that says like, hey, there's something here that needs to change, because if there's something that didn't need to change, I wouldn't be feeling anything, right? And so the way that I view that is like the sensation that I'm getting back is just feedback and information. And so that means that if I don't want to feel that, I just need to change the way that I am. So I think that I can like go in and change the way that I am in that position to get to the point where I don't feel anything. So practical example of that could be, let's say I'm first time doing a deep push-up, I'm in there and my tricep is like burning because I'm just thrusting and I'm trying to resist gravity, right? My tricep is burning. The way that I approach that is like, okay, stay in that, like experience the sensation, and then ask, what is it that I need to change to not have that burn? And literally, like physiologically, that would mean that this isn't firing to shorten. It means that we're lengthening this, and this is actually shortening, right? Because if this is shortening and this is lengthening in a deep push-up, this isn't going to burn because it's actually physically lengthening. This is actually physically shortening, right? And so if I do that, like if I could be in that position and literally like switch what is contracting and what is not, then that allows me to then stay in that position because now I'm not going to fatigue out, and then I can press up at the end. But I don't look at it as the brain being the driver of that. I am the driver of that, and the brain responds to me.
This is reminding me a lot of the PIPES acronym from Jay a little bit, just having to be fully aware of all of it.
Yes, 100%. Like, it's my belief that, or I guess somewhat what I've seen to be true, and there's gradient levels to all of this, right? But I think it's possible for an individual, or for a being, or for a person to be able to know whatever they want, like to be able to know every single thing that they would want to know. I think it's possible for that person to know that, because there is nothing that happens in your body or wherever else that doesn't have a specific cause and effect. And so if you don't know why your elbow hurts, or if I don't know why my elbow hurts, or I don't know why this is burning, it's just because I don't have the data information yet, but there is a very specific cause and effect of that, and I can figure out what that is.
So you know how when you have, like, whether it's dopamine, you know how you get dopamine response from hard work?
Yeah.
And so, you know, your brain releases that chemical response where you feel like you feel really good after you accomplish something. So do you agree that there's part of that piece of the brain that, you know, when you have that hard working, when you have something in front of you that's really difficult and it's hard for you to accomplish, do you believe in being able to like flex that muscle over and over again, so that that thing that becomes hard is now it's becoming more gratifying chasing after it, and it becomes almost easier to go after something that's hard and difficult? Is that, in your opinion, is that changing the chemical response to the dopamine, or is that changing, in your sense, how you are? Because
I think, yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I do. I think the dopamine that changes, or whatever chemical changes get changed in the brain because of those decisions that you're making, those chemical changes are a response to you making the decision in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's not the dopamine that causes you to change. The dopamine is the effect from you making the decision to do it. So then the question is like, what is the thing that makes the decision to do that? Because dopamine comes after that. Like, the dopamine is no different than I have pain in my elbow. It's a symptom. Mm-hmm. Whatever chemicals are in the brain are a symptom, just like pain in my elbow is a symptom. So that's where I'm like, the thing starts with, what is it? What is the thing that makes the decision? Because that is then what affects or what causes different chemicals to show up. And so if you're an individual that does the hard thing, that makes the decision, because like for me, I mean, I don't know if like hard decisions get easier, because a lot of just like running around doing hard shit like most of the day, right? And I don't know if it gets any easier, but it's just, I don't know. It's just like, have to make the decision, do the decision over and over and over again, right? I don't know if that ever gets easier. I don't really want it to get easier, because then it might get boring. I don't know. But the point is, like, yeah, I think those chemical their responses, like, it's in the chemical response is the response. It's not the thing that drives it.
Do you try to do something perceivingly difficult every single day?
I mean, I don't know. I want to make progress. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think just as a natural side effect of that, things are difficult. But I'm not the guy. I used to do things where it was like, okay, I'm going to go in the sauna because it's difficult, or I'm going to take a cold shower because it's difficult. It's like, I don't know. For me, I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I can do that. But the thing that I actually need to do is I need to like get this thing set up in my business so that it can work. And I'm just doing this cold shower thing to say it's hard, so I don't do this other hard thing.
That's the David Goggins analogy is perfect for this, because like everyone's like, he always running is like stay hard and choosing hard things. Like, David, what are you running from? Like, it's clear that he's running from something. Like, yeah, you respect his physical hard work, but you ask him anything about his spirit or his being, he's gonna call you a pussy and tell you just to do more push-ups and run. It's like,
I'm not going to argue with David. I'm not going to argue with guys. So whatever.
His brain needs to get scanned, though. I do have to say that. It's like his brain just needs to get looked at just to see. Because I know him and Huberman were talking about that one piece of the brain that gets stronger the more you're able to choose hard things and do more difficult things. I forgot the name of the piece of the brain.
That's what I was just talking about. I didn't know the name either, though.
Wait, guys. Go ahead, but we do have Google.
Google it? Yeah, Google it.
Oh, you said, all right, Jamie, look that
Jamie,
up.
pull it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need a Jamie. I don't anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, there's no shot. I remember the cortex and the mid, but I couldn't remember the rest of it. I mean, that was just cool hearing. It was just because everyone talks about mental toughness, but no one can even describe what it is. It's just some people.
I know, but okay, so then here's my issue with that, right? Like if somebody's like, okay, well, this is the brain area that makes you have willpower. And they're like, okay, we're going to give you this supplement that contains the thing that makes this area stronger. Like it doesn't, David Goggins didn't get that way. Regardless of what your thoughts of David, this is not whatever your thoughts are on David Goggins. Like he didn't get that way because he took a supplement. It's like the decision that he made. And then that's the effect. Right. But it's not his brain. His brain is developed because of who he is. His brain chemistry is the way it is because of who he is and the decisions that he makes.
So you just mentioned supplements. Like, what do you say to people that say they need pre-workout or energy drinks before they get into a session?
Or a post-workout protein shake? Vanilla.
Bro, I did not expect that one to get so much. I was like, okay, sorry. Not really.
It's like I eat twice a day and people get pissed about it. It's like
Wait, you eat twice a day too, or you don't?
I eat like 2, maybe 3 times a day. It's just but your post was funny. It's like everyone just gets upset as soon as you mention anything that's different than what people know about nutrition. They get fired up about it.
Like, oh, you're just an influencer. I was like, okay, all right, I don't want to be an influencer. I want to have a business. but yeah. So the question was supplements. I mean, I tell them that I am caffeine. No, no. I mean, I don't know, like, I think it's fine if a person wants to use it, like fine, or if a person wants to use a supplement, like pre-workout, if it has something that isn't beneficial or that is actually negative, then I'll be like, no, let's not do that. Or at least start to go down the road of what is it that's in your life that is causing you to not be excited about what you're doing? Like, why is it that you want to train? And they'll be like, yeah, okay, great. Why don't you have energy? I don't know. Well, what is it that you're doing that's taking energy? There's going to be something that's taking energy. There's going to be something that needs to be cut out that's taking energy. It's just like, that is true. If you don't have energy, it's because there's something there. And so I'll start to go down that path with them. Some guys will want to go further than others, whatever. But it's basically just like trying to meet them where they're at to some degree, but then just getting them to the point where potentially they can see, oh, I can actually create my own. And I don't necessarily need that. Because it's interesting over the course of, from the time when I started the business through now, just the kind of stuff that I've been going through, whatever, it's definitely gotten more clear for me for what it is that I want to do through what it is that we do, like through DAC, which is basically what it's come to is giving a person the ability to have freedom to control their own system, like however they want. At the start, it wasn't necessarily that. It was more like train really hard, get prepared, only for sport type of thing. And that is definitely still a huge aspect of it, but it's progressed more into like, okay, how can we actually get a person to the point where they can control their system however they want in whatever way they need to like use it, just purely. So if we take that into the pre-workout context, it's like, yeah, how can you get to the point where you understand how to create your own energy?
Yeah, I love that too. And just from, looking at it from the coach and the business side of things too, like I always talk about how, well, I've been talking about this recently a lot, how the founder of the business needs to adapt in order for the business or the podcast to grow in our sake. And that's something that I've looked at a ton with where we started with the podcast 2 years ago and where I started with Jack to Javelin 2 years ago is very similar. Like my whole thing was just, make javelin cool, get jacked and throw bombs. And it quickly came to a point where I realized, hey, there's information that's not out there for people to access for free or even in a way that might be beneficial to some people. And in that long form style of YouTube and podcasting and having the mobile app. And so it's cool that you see your evolution, how you've changed as an athlete and as a coach, and that's reflective in your business and how you've adapted to be able to help more people in the long run. Because it's very similar to how I've been as well, is I believe that the route that I'm taking now is I'm able to help a lot more people this way. And it just, it's really just maturity and growth.
Yeah, 100%. And what I've come across lately too is, one individual like you yourself or me, myself, I can only help so many people. Mm-hmm. At some point in terms of actual, if we talk like training one-on-one context, at some point you will hit, if you're I don't know, like if you're good enough, like eventually you get to the point where you're like, I program for like as long as I can every day. And for me to take on 10 more, like I can't physically do that. I have it as efficient as I can. So then at some point it then becomes about like, and this is a little bit where I'm at right now. I want to continue to grow the actual technology of the business in terms of like how we train guys. So I want to be able to continue to do that. And I am continuing to do that. But in order for me to do that and have time to continue to help people, like I need to be able to get other coaches or to be able to train other people to be able to implement it so that they can help people as well. Right. And so it's an interesting process because I don't know if like I have a whole way that I do things in my head that I didn't even necessarily know before that I had something where like when I look at something, I'm looking for something specific. So just like mapping that whole, in terms of how I work with people, mapping that whole thing out is a super interesting process because it became so much more clear for me of like, how do I get another person to actually see what it is that I'm seeing and make it real to them so that they can go and coach and they can handle someone that's immediately post-op, even though they're not a physical therapist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it so much too. Like the amount of reps that you've gotten over the last 5 to 10 years have been insane. So obviously, I've talked about that a lot too. When you're in your second year coaching, you have 1 year of context, and then when you're in your third year coaching, now you've doubled because you did 2 years when previously you only had 1 year of experience. And so, especially in your, I think early mid 20s and getting closer to 30, like every year is so crucial to your development, and especially with online now too. Like how many javelin videos do I watch every single day, and I see it in person, and you're able to see it real time, and you're the same way. It's like how many athletes do you have where you've just watched their videos and you've seen their progress, and you get to see hundreds of athletes develop from all different types of surgeries, and to be able to adapt and refine your process based on what you've seen real hand.
Yeah. Observation. And then it's basically, yeah, you send something out for them to do, you get feedback back, and over and over and over again, that many reps, you start to learn 100%.
So let's talk a little bit about now, like you're talking about how you can get everything in your head written out or being able to teach someone. And we've talked about continuing education, reaching out to other coaches. I think this is what I know a lot of people want to hear about. And me specifically, I would love to hear about this, is with your call with Jay Schroeder and his impact on your coaching philosophy, life philosophy, and if he had any impact on how you view not just training, but the world itself.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. Like it's actually pretty simple. What I specifically took out of it was very simple and very specific. The thing that I took out of it that changed the most was, and I've talked about this before, was literally just like how to actually do a slow lower. Or what he calls is iso extreme. So basically, when I got on the call with him, he asked if I had done a 5-minute extreme iso before, and I was like, yeah, because at that time I had done a deep push up in the bottom of for 5 minutes with 85 pounds on the back. I was like, yeah, like I've done that. He's like, well, how did you do it? I was like, well, I was in the bottom and I was holding. He's like, okay, I know you haven't done one. And I was like, like what? Like I did. What do you mean? And he's like, well, what did you feel? And I told him what I was feeling. He's like, yeah, so I know that you haven't done it. And it was just that simple. It was that simple idea. And he like explained what it is or how that should be. Right. It was that simple concept, which then allowed me to actually do one, which was actually physically, it was a different way to do that. It was actually a different way to control and use and operate my body and my system that I did not understand before. I listened to he has like 4 or 5 podcasts out. I listened to him. The one I probably listened to like 50 times, literally, like no joke. Gone through it so many times, but then having the actual conversation with them and just getting that one piece of data allowed me to completely change how it was that I viewed it and how I trained, because it was actually different, right? And so that was the biggest thing that I took, is there can actually be different methods and different ways of doing things that I don't understand right now. And because before I was like, well, I already know, and I know everything. And I think I'm doing it well, and I can do it on my own and by myself, and I can go as fast as I need to by myself. But then that one call, I mean, you can, on my Instagram, you can see it literally in like 3 months, just like massive change just from that one little piece of data, which is how to do a slow lower. And I don't want the people listening to this to take it as like, oh, well, the slow lowers are the only thing, right? that's how it worked for me. And those are one piece of what it is that we do. But that specific thing for me helped it to click.
Has there ever been a point where you've made a public proclamation on your Instagram or whatever and say like, hey, I was wrong about this one thing, or I've changed my mind about something in the past?
A public proclamation? I mean, in regards to like ISOs and slow lowers, I mean, I've said before, I do them differently than we did before, but it's not even like it's not like it's wrong. You're still training in the way that I was doing it before. And even now, like, I guess I don't really do ISOs anymore, or at least in that way. But it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't like I was wrong. It was just, hey, I've learned new stuff and this is the way that we're doing now because it's better. So, you know, I mean, it's interesting because like new coaches that want to get into it will ask, well, how do I know? Or they'll be like, well, I can't, whatever, like I can't communicate in the same way that you do, right? And they're talking to me. I'm like, that's fine. I couldn't communicate in the way that I do now when I first started either.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to reach or get the exact person or the exact level of person, however it is that you want to say it, that you have the ability to communicate with. So if your communication level is like 10 out of what could be 100, you're going to reach that person, but it's fine because you have to go through that. And probably, and also honestly, like you shouldn't work with someone that's at 100 when you're only at 10 because it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So just talk about what it is that you actually know and can communicate on right now. And that's exactly the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I see that all the time where people come to me and then talk trash about the coach that they used to work with. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe you needed that coach in order to come work with someone like me who's a little bit more specific and, you know, does this full time. And this is what I research every day and study and all that stuff. Like you got to have the context to understand like how to throw a javelin or how to, you know, communicate something at a base level before you get to a more advanced level. And obviously you progress through that as you continue on.
Yeah. You just have to do it. Like do it wherever you're at right now. Like that's it.
Yeah.
There's clearly levels to it. I mean, just so I was just thinking, it's like you don't say your middle school science teacher was an idiot. Like when you're in middle school, like that's the smartest person at that time in your life to teach you science. And then you take science in high school. Yeah, it's genius. And you take it in high school and you take it in college and you notice there's levels, there's different things, different rabbit holes you can go down. And that's kind of how I feel with strength conditioning. I mean, in college, I felt like no one knew what they were talking about, but that's different. But just going down different rabbit holes and the things of social media where you can find different things, I think that's where it kind of gets misconstrued and a little bit cloudy. Like, how do you go about cutting through that and knowing what it is that's actually going to be valuable for you?
Like for me to take an information on?
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know, man. Like, just to be completely honest, in the last 2 years, probably the only training podcast that I've listened to would be like the Adam Archuleta ones that came out. There's like 2 that came out. I think that those are the only training podcasts that I listened to in like the last 2 years. And the reason I've listened, I'm taking in other information, I'm taking in other data, I'm taking in like, I'll listen to other podcasts, but not necessarily training because I mean, the reason is like I would start a training podcast and I don't know, like I'm like, okay, this is what the person's going to say. This is what the person's going to say. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it just, I don't know. I wasn't necessarily getting anything out of that. And I'm not trying to, that's just what happened for me because I did spend, I mean, from 14 years old to 23, 9 years, it's just like every single day taking as much data as I possibly could. And then it's like, at some point it kind of got to a point where it flipped a little bit where I was like, okay, I have different information, I have different data, and now it's more like me creating it rather than me taking ideas from other people, I guess. Because I think what it comes down to is like if I have base or fundamental principles that actually work and are real, right? Like if you take an apple and you drop it and it falls to the ground every single time, that is a natural law that actually happens. That is real. It's not an idea, it's not a concept, it's not a theory, that happens, right? So if an individual can get to the point where they understand something to that level, like if you understand training to that level where this happens every single time, right? Then I think that allows you to then create off of that rather than just take in an idea and try it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest part of what you said was, I mean, you're trying to get skills that you don't currently have. So you wouldn't probably spend a lot of your time reading books that you've already read or listening to podcasts that you already know that information. You're trying to find the next thing and level up. And, you know, I went through that phase too, where my first 2 years coaching, all I did was listen to performance podcasts and watch performance YouTube and go out and, you know, try to talk to as many javelin coaches and Olympians as I could and so on and so forth. And then now the last year has been all me reading books about business and listening to business podcasts, because that's what I didn't know anything about. That's where I needed to level up in. I felt like I had learned so much about javelin and training from 16 to 25. And I was like, all right, well, now I have to do this full time, and I have to make this work for me and my wife, and I have to make this work for me to impact more people and get more reach. And that's what I was lacking, and that's what I needed to go out and find. And so you're not like to be honest, like if there was like a javelin podcast out there, like I don't know if I would listen to it. You know, I would probably listen to something else. Like, you know, maybe I'm trying to learn more about the neurology side of training that Brett's been teaching me about, and we've been having some guests talking about different training principles. Like maybe I'd be more interested in that stuff, or continue to go down the business rabbit hole. But you don't want to always just keep hammering after what you're already good at. And I think there's a lot of benefit to taking all that information that you learned from what you said, 13 to 24 or whatever, and just kind of now sticking to yourself and sticking to your clients and working with them and refining your process within, because sometimes you could kind of get that information overload, and then where are you taking action, right? Like you have
yeah, that's a good point. And for me personally, it's like pushing to a place that like, I don't know, but like taking yourself to a place that maybe nobody has been at before. And so it's like where am I going to get the data on that, right? If, you know, for me to do whatever, let's say like 10 5-minute push-ups in 2 hours, I don't like, there's no data on that, right? So or like, I don't know, the one day I did whatever it was, 2,500 impulses for one move, and I was like, okay, this is stupid. But like, there's no data on that, right? And so at some point, I think it's like, to get new data, if it hasn't been gone to before, then, you know, then I basically will go do that and just observe what happens, and then use kind of the base things that I've learned to be true as guiding principles for how I'm then going to take and implement it.
You ever feel like you get in that information overload anymore, or is that something you kind of like grew out of?
No, so I mean, I don't know. It's not that I grew out of it; it's that I got more data on how to actually learn. So basically, like I took a course on how to learn, and after taking that, there's not really anything that, like, learning is a very simple process. You just have to understand the words that you're reading. You have to understand the context of the words that you're reading. And if you don't, and you go past something that you don't understand, then you're not going to understand it. Right. So there's a very simple, like it's pretty simple. And so once I understood that, and I was like, okay, there isn't really anything that I can't learn. I just have to put in the effort to understand. This is why I don't dig into that much, like neurology and anatomy and stuff, because there's so many words. Like the one that we looked up,
same, bro. Same.
way too many words.
Understand that, like, I don't know. Like, what is that thing? What actually is that, right? It's like, it's a piece of tissue that's there, and things get sent through it. So anyways, but yeah, like having the understanding of how to learn then means that I can go and I can, if I want to learn about something, I know what not to do. If I'm trying to research something and I feel myself getting just like fuzzy and like I'm not understanding, like I have overload, I know how to correct it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to figure out what it is that I didn't understand. I'm going to understand that. And then I'm going to, like, that's going to release. I'll have energy again, and I can keep going.
That's interesting. That's something that I've been struggling with, and just the desire and want to learn everything all at once, like to know everything. It's like, if I can have a crystal ball with an athlete and to be able to see into it of what exactly it's supposed to work, or like even for myself with chronic injuries or stuff that I've had, which I've talked about in the podcast, like trying to figure it out all on your own, you kind of just get lost in like a field of reeds. You're kind of just there on yourself, just not, you kind of know, but you kind of don't. And that's where you feel like you're getting in that teeter-totter position. It's difficult to go all in on something when you just have so much information available.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's that, I guess. So that's what I'm saying with information is if you don't want to feel that way, there's a specific way to take in information so that you don't get to feel that way. Right. And that is what again, that's like the course that I took, that's what helped me to understand that. And that's where literally just like last night I was looking into, I was looking into whatever, some things, and there's probably like 40 different words that I just like cleared, looked up, got the full context of, and I was like, okay, I understand this much better now. And yeah, it's cool because it allows me to think much faster. If I go back, because I went back, I think I put this up on my Instagram before, maybe a couple years ago now, but there's like a video of me talking in one of my videos from 2021. And literally when I listened to it, it felt like I was talking like this. I was like, bro, what is wrong with you? I was like, wake up. And it's just, I feel able to think much more quickly. Because there's not a bunch of stuff that I don't understand that I'm trying to work through all the time. So I literally there's not that feeling of whatever you want to call it, fog or cloudiness.
Yeah, I mean, we just hit episode 100 like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and so we went back and listened to our first episode together, and it was terrible. It's
it was awful.
It's so bad. And I think, I mean, it's definitely something that we're trying to work on as well, is becoming better speakers. And when we hit episode 100, I told Brett how I felt like I was a bad host when we had people on. I felt like when I was being interviewed and asked questions, I was fine. When I was talking to Brett, I was okay. But I felt like I was a bad host. And I was like, why do I feel like I'm a bad host? I'm like, okay, well, we've had 10 guests on in 100 episodes. We probably asked them 6 questions per episode. Brett asks half. I've asked half. So that means I've only asked a question on a podcast 30 times in 2 years. So I was like, of course I'm going to be bad at it because I haven't done it that many times. And so then now after episode 100, we've been trying to get guests on like 2-3 times a week. And this is the 4th podcast I've done this week. And I feel like, I'm finally starting to feel my stride. But going back and listening to how I was 2 years ago, it was night and day. And the big thing for me, what I realized in terms of what you're saying about the learning is, if I'm talking to Brett on the podcast or I'm talking to you and I'm talking about something where I might not be totally sure about what I'm talking about, I start speaking in that slower monotone. Like I'm almost searching for the words and searching for the answers as I'm speaking it, versus like right now when I'm kind of just free flowing and I'm talking because I know what I want to say and I'm confident in it and I have a message that I've said hundreds of times at this point, and I've refined the way I've thought about it. I've refined the way I've talked about it. You're able to articulate it in a manner that you weren't able to before.
Yeah, no doubt. 100%. Like it's the same thing with training, right? It's the same principle.
What do you say to an athlete that is kind of in that boat, like the wishy-washy boat of the scared to do this, not sure if this is for them? We talked about this pre-pod, so I wanted to bring it up. It's like they see your style of training. They're not confident in themselves. I mean, that's a epidemic in itself of young males lacking just overall confidence. Like going up to talk to a girl is nightmare mode for them. Like they won't be able to do it. So then you go into training and they're like, I have no idea what this is. This is something that I'm not comfortable with. How does that conversation go?
Yeah. So they're not confident. They're not sure if they want to train with me, or they're not like confident in some type of exercise, or what's the specific context here?
Let's say just training with you overall.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, anytime there's a lack of confidence in something, it's because there's data that you don't have, and so you have doubt, right? If I know exactly what it is that's happening, I'm going to be able to go in that thing with like speed, precision, and be able to attack that because I know what it is that's going to happen. So it makes sense that somebody that has just seen my stuff or that hasn't dug into my stuff, they see what it is that I do. They're not going to know. They're going to have doubt and they're going to be slow. They're going to be like, I don't know if this is for me. Same thing happens for me when I look at someone else and I see something that they're doing, maybe training context, business context, conversation context, or whatever. If I don't have data on that, then I'm going to be like, I don't know. And I'm going to feel like I need to pull back. So what I say is like, this is exactly what is supposed to happen. And there's no other way that it could happen because you don't actually have any data on this. You don't actually know what it is. You see a couple of videos and that's all the data that you have, right? And so then from there, it's like basically what we do, our process is to go through and meet the individual athlete wherever it is that they're at and then get them to the point of like whatever it is that they want to go to, right? So I guess to make that real for the person is like, if they see me doing a depth drop off of 4 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, whatever it is, be like, okay, that scares you. We're going to start off of 6 inches. Like, okay, doing a 5-minute deep push-up, you're not going to be able to do that. Great. We're going to start at 45 seconds. Right. So it's making these things real for them where it's, we're going to do the same type of stuff that you see me doing, but it's going to be regress to the level that you're at. And that's it. And it absolutely makes sense that you don't understand or you're afraid of it because you haven't done anything with it yet. There's no other way that could be. Let's roll.
I had someone text me that is doing your program. He works with Seth, and he wanted to know, in his program, there's things on it saying, don't allow yourself to think this, like in a push-up or a split squat or whatever exercise it is. Like, don't let your mind get to this. And he says when he does it, that's like where his mind immediately goes. And he wants to know how you knew that.
How I don't let my mind go to somewhere?
No, like how he like, it was written in his program. Like it says, don't let your mind think this, or like don't have this thought going into the exercise, whatever. And he said, it's crazy that I, without even looking at it, I had that thought and then looked back and it said not to think that. It's like how, it's almost like was that foresight? Like you see into the future a little bit. It's like knowing what they're going to think before they do it.
Okay. I understand your question now because I had a different, so basically like or whoever's right, let's say I'm writing the program and I can predict what it is that they're going to be feeling while they're in it. Yeah. That's because, I mean, that's the way that we program. So even with Seth, like that's the way, that's part of our training when I'm taking a coach through training is like, basically the goal is to get any coach that I have in myself to the point where that person knows or is confident that they can handle whatever it is that would pop up with them physically. Because the way that we program is get information from the athlete, get whatever data you need from the athlete, so that you can put yourself in their situation to feel exactly what it is that they're feeling, so that you can then program for them in the same way that you'd program for yourself. And so when I'm writing, for me specifically, when I'm writing descriptions, I'll basically be like feeling out what I'd be feeling as I'm going through that training session. So like if they're in the bottom of a deep push-up and it starts to burn, I'll be like, when it starts to burn, just example would be when it starts to burn, don't allow yourself to go to the point of like that burns. Just example, that could be an example, right? Like literally just don't have that thought and instead like go to lengthen that. But it's being able to predict what the person is going to feel because I'm taking myself through that as I'm writing programming. And that's like something that I'll teach as we go through the code, like when I'm training coaches.
Do you go over the emotional side of it too, of how they feel going into it? Because for me, long duration isometrics can bring out a whole bunch of different emotions, or just even training, like even like a heavy squat, like you go up to it, fear, anxiety, like the butterflies, and that's like a 1RM max attempt. Like that's what I think. Split squat, it says 5 minutes, you fail at 3, you're pissed. Like you have anger now. Like, do you help navigate the types of emotions that they might be feeling in a training program?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, 100%, because those have to play in. So basically if we go to the PIPES acronym, and again, I didn't come up with this, Jay Schroeder, but it's physiology, intellect, psychology, emotion, spirit, right? If we look at emotions, or if we look at each of those, let's say we give them all, they could be at levels from 0 to 100, right? So let's say that you can physically engage your bicep at 60%. So it's going to be 60 out of 100, right? If your ability to engage emotionally and spiritually that day, let's say your girlfriend just broke up with you and you're like, oh, I don't really want to do anything. It has, some people might be like, oh, I'm pissed, I'm ready. Other people might be like, oh, whatever, right? So let's say it puts you at 40%. The engagement of your ability to engage that bicep physically is going to go down to that same level until or if you're able to go past that mental or emotional block. Only when you do that is that physical capacity going to go up as well. Even though you could like physically do that, right? If your mental emotional isn't willing to go there, then this is going to stay down at that same point. And so as it relates to emotions, it's helping the individual to understand that is one tool that they have that they can access. Right. So because one of the ways that I look at it for myself is what are all the different tools that I have that I can access? I can access my physiology. I can use my muscle in a different way than I was before. That's one thing that I have access to. I can access my intellect. I can understand to a greater degree what it is that we're doing and why we're doing that. And that's going to help me to have greater levels of buy-in because I have more clarity on it, right? Emotions, I understand that I can access anger, I can access joy, I can access apathy, I can access boredom, right? These are all tools that I can use. And then if we go to what did I skip? If we go to like psychology, basically like I can be more or less present. I can have different habits that I can have or that I can do. Basically, like if I'm in an ISO, I could habitually go to 3 minutes. I'm tired. I don't want to go. I have to understand that I could switch and just without feeling like I want to go like I'm actually at 1 minute. Might be completely insane based off of the time that's on the clock, but I can do that, right? I have the freedom to do that. And then if we look at spirit, it's I don't know, like the individual's willingness to like push, I guess, or to want to live and to want to express, right? So these are all tools and things that the athlete has access to. And I don't think many people or athletes understand that they're tools. They think that they're attached to those things. This is similar to the brain thing that I was talking about earlier, right? If you think you're a certain way because of your brain, or if you think that you have to go to a certain physicality or a certain emotion or certain like mental way of thinking, that means that you're attached to that thing where it's like every time that you go into deep push-up, this happens. So what we want to have is the freedom to do something different in each of those different 5 categories. To have choice over it. Like I don't have to have I can have a dopamine. I don't have to have a dopamine. Whatever that thing is, to have the choice over it is how I do my best to like navigate with our athletes.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
and then do you feel like if they were to choose what they want to do, they would be more likely to succeed at it because they had the choice?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's I don't know how, like, it's like a natural law that if an individual is forced to do something, or this is just what happens, like if an individual is forced to do something that is not their choice, that's going to have an effect on that person. Like, there's no way that doesn't have an effect, right? Because everything has a cause and effect. And so the effect that is going to have on that person is that person has less self-determinism. There's no other way that it could work, right? Because literally in this situation, you're giving them less self-determinism. And so if you take that off, so that could be a block of that person's energy and willingness to invest and engage, because their self-determined is basically their willingness to invest and engage. So if you take that off and you look at like, you could actually choose to do this yourself on your own because you want to, that can then help take off those blocks that are getting in the way of them being willing to invest in what it is that they're doing.
Do you feel like that role of gamification finds your way into the program at all to kind of give the athlete that freedom of expression? I know you've posted about spike ball in the past, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you still do? And do you feel like that's giving them the athlete that freedom of choice and expression maybe before they enter into some of the training modalities that they might not be so excited about doing?
I mean, it's all of our guys are remote, and so we don't really have. We'll do some exploration type stuff. We'll do some lighter stuff where it's like whether it's bear crawls, like design different things, or dunks. Like as far as spike ball or something like that goes, we don't really have the option because most guys aren't going to have 4 people that they can just go play with. So we don't necessarily do too much of that. It's because even it's all a tool, right? But even a game, if a person needs a game to get them in that spot, then that's also again like the similar thing. We basically want them to be able to choose and not need it, right? It's like it's an option that we can have. But if we have to put something that's exploration or that's fun based at the start of every single session, and without that, you're not able to get going for the session, then you are no longer, that individual is no longer at the top of that. They're no longer at choice or decision point of that. They're just like in response to the game.
I love that.
It becomes reliant. It's like the caffeine that we were talking about, the pre-workout, or like the hype music. So
yeah.
Why do you need all that? Why do you need a game to warm up or to take 3 scoops of pre-workout to train or to do what you're supposed to do?
Yeah. And I'm not trying to like,
I know.
I definitely not. I mean, I think when people like are with me in person, they realize and understand I'm not like the Goggins guy. I'm not that. I can go from like joking to like very serious pretty quick. And so I'm not that guy, but it's about that choice. Huh?
You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
No, to me, that's just like, I don't know, because I do like to have fun. I like to work hard, but I also like to have fun because having fun helps me to continue to work hard, right? It's them not needing those things, but being able to have the choice and having the decision to It's something, that's what I was going. The game is something that we can use, and it doesn't mean that we don't use games, but it's not something that we feel like we have to need or use all the time. Like that's the goal, is for the person to have the choice.
You posted last year about you sitting in your driveway for about 20 minutes and then going directly into a sprint. You'd be proud of me because I got to the beach this morning where I do my morning walk or cardio or jog or whatever, and I started sprinting right away to prep for this podcast. So I just did 5 sprints, no warm up, and I felt amazing. So I want to know your thought process behind the sit into the sprint.
Yeah. Okay. So basically it was, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to move, and I want to prepare myself to go sprint without moving. So we can take, again, these are like these concepts and ideas where this is what I'm experimenting with on myself, is if we don't need a game to get prepared for training, well, can we also set it up where we don't need movement to prepare for movement? I can prepare myself for movement by sitting there, right? So you have these different things that I can manipulate. I can manipulate how my hamstring feels as I sit here. Can I make it feel loosen? Can I make it feel light? And like I can go in a sprint right now without actually moving. Do I need to move to loosen up my hamstring? Or can I just loosen it by loosening it, period, right? Can I put myself in a space where like, okay, the clock is at 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, I'm up and I'm like off into a sprint as hard as I can. Where do I have to be mentally in order to do that, right? How present do I have to be? Like I can't be thinking about all this other things. Like I can't be thinking about the client that I have to talk to or the sleep that I need to get or whatever. So it's an experiment for myself to look at how can I almost like take my body out of it a little bit and just like me, right? How can I myself prepare myself to go do whatever it is that I want to do without like, and just be that, just be ready for that, right? So it's like, be ready for whatever it is that I want to do at any point in time. And that was just one way to experiment with that. I mean, but if we're talking specifically with athletes, it's literally like, okay, you know how you want to feel when you go sprint hard at 100%. You know what that feels like. Prepare yourself to do that without moving. Go. Right? Because for a lot of guys, I think that would be like, I have no idea how to do that. I have to do my skips and I have to do my whatever, which is fine. But it's like, there's a different level that we can probably get to.
What are your thoughts on, I mean, you know who Paul Skeens is in the MLB, and his 2-hour-long warm-up to go throw has been circulating Instagram a little bit. Like, you don't have to attack Paul Skeens as
nah, man, he's like, Paul Skeens. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants. But like I've worked at Cressy's and I've seen kids that need to roll out for 60 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes like an hour and a half. They're just rolling out. Like, what does that conversation look like to just get them to be like, dude, you probably don't need to do this and you probably need to focus on other things, but it's been such their routine. Baseball players are creatures of habit. They get stuck in those routines and they really get stuck in their ways, just because I've seen it and definitely was one of those. Like, how does that conversation even look to someone like that?
Did you play baseball?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so that'll be so it's making it real. So it's like, why are you growing up? Like, what is the benefit that you get from it? So it starts with, I'm not going to invalidate what it is that they do, because it gets them to the point where they feel prepared. Great, right? I'm not going to just tell them that it's wrong. So usually, in most cases, 99% of the cases, the reason that they roll out is because they're tight and they need to feel less tight. It's like, okay, great. So then I will go into, why is it that you feel tight? I'm like, well, I don't know. So basically, tightness is because you have some type of, let's say you have a bunch of these sensors, you have all of these receptors in your body, in your system, and it's getting that receptor in that area, or those receptors in that area is feeding information up that is saying, you're not ready to move. Let's say you're not ready to move fast right now. And so the response back down is tightness and inhibition. That's basics of like why you feel tight, right? And so what happens when that person rolls out, this will I'll explain to them, is like what happens when you roll out is you're going to put external pressure on those sensors, right? It's going to take those sensors offline for a period of time. So now the information that it's sending up is gone, or it's different, right? So the response back down is going to be different. The response back down is going to be less tightness and less inhibition, because it's not getting feedback up, because you just turned off the sensor by putting pressure on it. So that's why your body feels better after you roll out, right? So that's why they do it. Like, that's the sensation that they get. So then what we want to do, or at least what my goal is with training, is I want to put that athlete, or get you or that person in a position where that is not tight, so it doesn't have to send that signal up in the first place, to where the response back down would have to be tightness. Because the problem with the pressing on the sensors, as soon as that comes back online, it's the same thing. You didn't actually change the environment of the tissue inside. And so what we want to do with our preparation is change the environment of the tissue inside so that it doesn't have a need to send that signal up so that you don't actually have to roll out. And that's why I don't roll out, is because it doesn't, that's what it doesn't change the internal environment. And so 95% of the guys are like, that makes sense. Okay, let's go. Because that's, yeah.
I just know so many athletes just don't even think like that. It's just like.
But it's because of the data information that the person has, right? It's different data and it's different information. Like, this is my thing with like the whole medical field, which I don't really. We can go down that if we want, but if the data or information that the person is getting is wrong or is different, then obviously they're going to act on the data and information that they have. If the data and information doesn't work, then the results that they're going to get are going to be results that don't work. Right? So it's just like the athlete is doing that because that is what is prevalent. That is the data and information that they have, period. If they had different data and information, then they would do something that's different. So I'm not trying to just like tell a person that you're wrong. I'm like, no, this is the different data and information. You can come to your own conclusion. And if it's right, then the conclusion should be whatever it is that we're doing. If it's not, then what we're doing could be wrong. If it doesn't work, then what I'm doing is wrong. Like if I got up from that sprint for 20 minutes and I pulled my hammy, there is something wrong with the data and information that I have. But if it works, then that means that there's something right with the information that I have. And this is why I say like traditional PT, or even the way that we're approaching injuries and surgeries, or the way that we're preparing is wrong, because the actual results are the person is needing more operations on their soft tissue. So it does not work. If injuries and surgeries were declining, then great, it works. That's not what's happening.
I remember you posted last year talking about the logistical thing that happens when you get surgery and how you wouldn't be able to handle it if you weren't completely knocked out.
Yeah.
You were talking about, like, think about the surgery. Don't just think about, oh, I'm getting Tommy John surgery. Think about the fact that they are slicing your wrist. They're pulling out your palmaris longus out of your wrist, or the hamstring, or wherever they're pulling it from. For me, it was my wrist. So they cut it in 3 different spots. They pull it out. They cut open your elbow. They drill 2 big holes in the top of your elbow and in the bottom of your elbow into the bone. Then they take that palmaris longus. They intertwine it 3 times in a figure 8 pattern. They sew it together. They stitch you back up, and then they put you in a brace, and then you wake up. But if you weren't awake from that, if you weren't awake for that process, would you still get the surgery? Would you still opt for that to happen to your body? Can you talk about like how you got to that thought process and what made you start thinking about surgery that way?
Yeah, I think as far as I remember, that originally came from Tommy John. So huge inspiration came from him for that, of just like understanding how the body operates and understanding how it works. And then there's other data that I got after that kind of like added to that. But it's basically, that is the actual action that's physically happening. So if any idea or concept that I have or that you have, if you can take it and look at like, what is the actual mass of it? What is it that happens in the actual physical universe, like that actually occurs, right? And so exactly like you said, if I don't think about it as just a Tommy John, but I look at what are the steps that happen. You get a drug, you go under, you're unconscious, so that you don't feel the pain and sensation of what is about to happen, which is your tissue getting sliced open. That's literally just what happens. That's the actual reality of what happens, right? And if you were really awake during that, you would run out screaming. Like that's what would happen. That's the reality of it. And so that's all it is trying to look at. This is the same thing or is very similar to what we talked about before, where like if you get a strength coach and you ask them what actually happens in a sport, not looking at what do you think working out is. That's not the question. I'm not asking you what do you think working out is or what do you think training is. I'm asking what actually happens in a surgery, what actually physically happens in a sport, what actually physically happens. How many contacts, how many runs, whatever, like all the different type of shit. what is it that actually happens? Because only when we look at that can we then get a correct answer for how to handle it. And so if we're looking at the surgery, only if we understand that's what happens, can we understand how intense the rehab has to be. Because when, just by design, right, if there's an injury to my body, if there's an injury to my system, my number one goal, or my system's number one goal, is survival. That happening, that surgery, is a major injury that is a major threat to survival. And so then after that, if we don't rehab that correctly, and rehab means that you no longer perceive that as being a threat to survival, or it is no longer a threat to survival. If we don't do that correctly, then that is going to stay there and it's going to inhibit you, right? But we have to understand what the actual surgery is to understand the intensity of what has happened to get past that, to where you're like, you're like, I had this operation that I wanted to get up and run out of and never, like, not be there for, and it was like fucking really painful, right? But I have done enough work to know that I'm past that. I fully trust my body. I fully trust my tissue. I fully trust myself. I know how it is. I know how it operates, right? So we have to do enough work to do that, but we can't do that if we don't know what the problem was in the first place. So it's like, if I'm working with a PT and they're just like, yeah, you had a surgery and we're going to have you do bands. Like, bro, bands aren't going to help. I'm like, it's just like, at that point, you're just leaving it up to chance. I don't want to leave things up to chance. I want to know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, when you break down the process of what you go through, and then you see what traditional PTs are giving people to get back to the point where they no longer think about it, because that's something that you've talked about as well, is like how you've had elbow issues, you didn't get it fixed, but you've gotten to a point where you don't think about it. So then that's not something that is inhibiting you anymore. And I remember reading that post that you put up when I was like 2 years out of Tommy John, and I was still having problems. And on paper, I was cleared to compete, but I still was, not feeling good. And then that's when I really started diving down a lot different things and being like, all right, listen, I got to change something here. I got to do things a little differently. And yeah, I mean, I just think that there's so much wisdom in looking at PT for what it is, and looking at surgery for what it is, and then looking at sport for what it is, and being like, all right, how do we get from this point of surgery to this point of the sport? Because that traditional PT is it's missing something.
Yeah. And I'll say too, because this can be misinterpreted by athletes or by people, is like the how your body feels is exactly correct. If you don't feel prepared, that is exactly the way that you're supposed to feel. There's no other way. There's no other way that you could feel. If you haven't prepared, then you're going to feel like you haven't prepared. And so it's that switch of, oh, my arm doesn't feel ready yet. This sucks. My body's working against me. No, like, okay, but that's exactly how it's supposed to feel based off of what happened and what you've done so far. It is not wrong. Work with it instead of working against it.
I've never looked at it that way before. I'm kind of still just trying to process everything. It's just my gear. I was like, that's the way you just explained Tommy John. I was like, dude, the rehab's definitely way off for a lot of people. I was like, that's terrible what you guys do.
Yeah, you feel bad for me now?
I feel bad. I was like, no wonder why you keep getting hurt. But I think that goes into school and training and life. It's the things that you feel nervous about, or like that performance anxiety. It's just a lack of preparedness.
Right? Yeah. It's having doubt. It's not having the data on it's not having the data that you need. Is basically what it is. And when you have a surgery, you don't have the data. Like, because even it makes it a little more real for people. It's like, okay, if you're 20 years old when you get a surgery, from 0 to 20 years old, you had that experience where you send the signal down, you move it, you get feedback back. You're creating a map of that over and over and over and over and over. So you know what it is that's happening there. The minute you get out of the surgery, someone else just changed it. That configuration is completely different. You no longer have that map, or the map is incorrect. And so it's a huge blur, and there's doubt there. You could say the same thing for like a girl. Like, there's a girl that you've never talked to, and you haven't talked to many girls before. You haven't had that sense of get signal back. And so it's blurry, right? It's the same principle that applies.
It's like it's just a fear of unknown.
Yeah. But it's cool, because that's where a little bit, as the business has developed, I've been like, okay, I think it's possible for each individual to know whatever it is that they want to know. You just have to figure it out. You just have to understand cause and effect and how to like observe and get data and see what works and what doesn't. But it's possible to know.
I mean, my mind's blown. I don't think I can take anything else. I've been thinking about everything since the beginning. I was like, dude, the spirit, the eye, just trying to wrap it around.
I think we got to end this one on a cliffhanger. We're about an hour and 20 in. And I think that, we've covered a lot. I think it's all right to end on some open-ended questions sometimes. And, maybe we'll get a round 2 sometime soon.
Sounds good, guys.
Dude, right. DAC, that was awesome. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Brady.
Sure.
Thanks for tuning in.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star rating and review and share the show, because the only way that this show grows is if you like it, share it, and tell your friends and family about it.
New episode every Monday.